This is a visit to the Natural History Museum in London with paleontologist and National Geographic explorer Dr Nizar Ibrahim. The visit is in English, but before that, a few words for the Arabic-speaking audience. السلام عليكم. هذه زيارة لمتحف التاريخ الطبيعي في مدينة لندن مع عالم المستحدثات من الأصول المغربية نزار إبراهيم اللي كان دار اكتشافات عديدة في المغرب، وكنا درنا معاه لقاء مترجم موجود هنا في القناة. الزيارة هي باللغة الإنجليزية، ولكن ممكن بعد تسجيل الفيديو تكون ترجمة متوفرة في السبتايتلز سوتيتراج اللي غادي تلقاوها أسفل هذا الفيديو هنا. باش تشغلوها ضغطوا على زر العجلة اللي كاين تحت هذا الفيديو ولا في القنت أعلى يمين الفيديو. So, the Natural History Museum in London is one of the most significant science museums in the world, one of the largest as well. It is home to 80 million items. Obviously, only a tiny portion of it is on display. 80 million items. This includes specimens of plants and animals, rocks, meteorites, and a staggering amount of fossils. Many of the collections also have historical significance, like items collected by Charles Darwin himself. The beautiful building that we visited was opened to the public as a museum in 1881, but the collections date to much earlier and were hosted earlier by the Natural History section of the British Museum. We barely did a very tiny section of the museum, actually. We mainly focused on the dinosaurs and some of the mammals section. So plenty of room to come back and visit other sections like insects, geology, meteorites, human evolution, and so on. This is the first video on this channel in this format, so this is still a bit experimental. I filmed it with a GoPro, which proved to be actually extremely suitable for the job, especially with all the handshaking and everything. It was purchased thanks to the support of patrons in Patreon and subscribers in YouTube. If you want to support this channel and help make similar future videos, there are three options: patreon.com/NajibM, a membership here on YouTube, or a thank you under any video of the channel. And now let's go visit the museum. Yeah, hey.
Hey, hello amigo.
Hey, how are you? Yeah.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So, you ready for some dinosaurs?
Yeah, let's go and meet the dinosaurs. Let me just, yeah, good. Let's go meet the dinosaurs. How are you? How was your trip?
Good. How do you like London so far? Did you have a good time?
I'm falling in love with the city. The more and more I spend time in it.
Yeah, lots of really...
Maybe it's still October, so there's still some sun.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of why I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it doesn't get very cold here, It's not, we don't get a lot of snow or anything like that, so... Okay. We do get rain, so...
Why do you say we? Do you spend a lot of time here or
yeah, I do, but then I just got back from Michigan and Germany, so I'm still a little jet lagged.
Okay.
So you'll have to just forgive me if I'm a little slow.
No, we're all slow most of the time.
But this is a wonderful building. Before you even go in,
yeah.
I just want you to appreciate the beauty of the building. It's really it's like a cathedral.
Oh yeah.
For nature, and science.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have that feeling. Actually, I was quickly here the day before yesterday, and you do get that. It's almost a spiritual feeling. You feel something, just like what you feel in a big cathedral or a.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, do you know something about the history of the building? Or we can look it up in the museum.
I do. We can look at it in the museum. But what's interesting is there's another building, very much like this one, but smaller in Oxford.
Yes.
The Oxford Museum of Natural History, which is one of my favorite museums in the world. And that museum in Oxford was the model for the Natural History Museum here in London. So they kind of said, we're going to build something like the Oxford Museum, but bigger.
Awesome.
And one thing you'll see, you can already see here, see these, patterns on these columns?
Yeah.
And the carvings of animals and plants everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's really stunning. So even if you don't care about animals and plants, which would be weird because they're amazing, but even if you don't, if you're a weirdo, you can still appreciate the architecture. So some people come here to just appreciate the amazing art and architecture.
Oh, look at that. Oh, this is the famous main hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit. The big skeleton, you know what kind of a skeleton that is?
Let me see. Well, this one is a giraffe for sure.
Yes, that was an easy one. This is for warm-up.
Yes.
That was your warm-up
Yes.
question.
Let's go. Are we gonna cross security or no? Okay. I will
Not
get.
for you, you're a VIP. You don't need to go to security.
Yes. Okay, let me guess. So this a whale.
It is a whale.
It is a whale.
It is
a
a
prehistoric whale or is it a modern
No,
whale?
it's a modern whale. It's Hope, the blue whale.
Oh.
That's the name of this whale.
Oh. Okay.
And it's supposed to be a symbol for the work that the museum is doing in conservation and, you know. But I'm going to tell you one thing. The main hall here looked even more impressive before. There was a big dinosaur skeleton here.
Oh yeah.
A Diplodocus, Dippy the Diplodocus, which you can still see on some photographs of the museum, right?
Yeah.
And
I think it's back in one of the
it's back,
exhibitions.
exactly. You can
Yeah.
see it in one of the rooms now. It's back.
Yeah.
It traveled all around the UK,
Oh, I see.
and now it's back. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's check. Let's do the sound check.
Oh yeah, sure.
Make sure.
All
Excellent,
good.
It's still recording. Good.
So
Yeah.
it's a big museum, and there are lots of
also
yes.
like,
There's
all
some
around
other
the hall.
yeah around the hall. There are lots of things. We'll have to be a little selective, but I'll show you one interesting thing that has a direct connection to what I do.
Yeah. So by the way, on the card I have 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think. So
Okay.
we should be really selective, as
Yes,
you say.
that's what I'm saying. So there's some really cool dinosaurs in this museum. This is one of them, Mantellisaurus. It's named after a famous dinosaur scientist, Gideon Mantell.
Okay.
And we have a PhD student in Portsmouth in my university who's working on these kinds of animals, iguanodon and similar kinds of animals. So these are plant-eating dinosaurs. And this is one of the best skeletons from this group.
So every bone
anyway.
here was found. It's not like completed.
There are some, well, it's almost impossible to find a skeleton that's 100% complete, but it's fairly complete. And this one, by the way, is also from the Isle of Wight, where I used to live. And this is right off the coast of Portsmouth. So you can just take a hovercraft or a ferry, and then you're on this island, which is known as Dinosaur Isle, for obvious reasons, because you can find things like this. Now, these big cliffs, and the storms batter these cliffs and reveal fossils. And so you can walk down the beach, and if you're very lucky, you can find dinosaur bones, footprints, but usually you'll just find a few bones, and then you have to wait for the next storm to reveal a few more bones of the same skeleton. So it can take a long time, maybe 20 years to get one skeleton.
Maybe.
But maybe we can do that on your next visit.
Yeah.
Go for a dinosaur fossil hunt.
Yeah, I would love to.
See what you find.
Yeah.
You find something like this?
Amazing. So is he was an herbivore dinosaur?
Yes. This was a
Which,
plant-eating
era?
dinosaur from the Cretaceous.
Okay.
And you can see it's got these highly specialized teeth. So this is quite different from some other plant-eating dinosaurs, like the long-necked Diplodocus that used to be in the hall here that we're going to see later, which has very simple teeth, like pencil-shaped teeth to rake off vegetation. These guys the skull was moving in different directions. Really complicated piece. So we're not even really understanding all the details of the biomechanics of how they would process their food.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I think if we're being completely neutral and objective, the best place to start is the dinosaurs.
Yeah, of course, not the humans, the dinosaurs.
Humans are overrated, but we're going to look at the humans in a moment.
All right.
Humans just appeared like yesterday.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing.
We want to travel a little further in time.
Well, yeah, dinosaur dominated how long in the geological time?
Well, it really depends how you measure it, because we know the dinosaurs were around for 180 million years or so, pretty dominant for much of that time.
Yeah.
But of course, dinosaurs are still around.
Oh yeah.
As you remember from our conversation, there are more bird species than mammal species, right?
Yes.
In the world today. So, and if you need to buy a dinosaur T-shirt, now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Just in case you want to blend in with all the dinosaur fans in there. All right.
There you go. So they're already trying to define what What are
Yes.
dinosaurs? Because that's also an interesting question, right?
It is, and it's becoming harder and harder to define them, because when you go to the very earliest dinosaurs and you compare them to other types of reptiles that lived at the same time, you find, very few differences. It's becoming more difficult to define a dinosaur,
which is
to be expected.
in evolution, right?
Exactly. The closer you get to the very
Common
first one,
ancestor,
it's just the two very iconic, famous dinosaurs: T-Rex with the big bone-crunching jaws,
Yes.
and Triceratops with the 3 horns.
Yes.
I'm working on both of these dinosaurs at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know if I told you, I work on a big exhibit in Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll show you some images later on. But
So you build things like this yourself
yes,
for museums?
just better.
Of course.
You'll see, it's the ultimate dinosaur exhibit. This one is really, was really good when it first opened.
Okay.
But it's, with science, as you know, a lot can happen. In this has been, more or less like this for a few decades, and so a lot has happened since then. So it was very much cutting edge when it was first designed. But there's a lot you could add now.
Have updates to the actual content, but
yes,
it's better to build it when you build it a brand new one.
Yeah, but even with the content, it's difficult sometimes to update it. It's always a question of money.
Yeah, money. Technically, if you want to update this next, you need the budget, and the team and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right.
So this takes you through the big 3 chapters from the age of dinosaurs. One thing that you might be interested in is these guys here from the Jurassic that they show here are all from Africa, from Tanzania.
Oh.
So that's unusual, because we usually don't see much about African dinosaurs, but these are the ones that you can see in the Berlin Museum.
Oh, okay.
African dinosaurs from Tanzania.
Look at what you're mentioning.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
everywhere.
I mean, you just look at the attention to detail, and I mean, this is how I would design my home if I had the money.
Yeah, excellent.
So if you want to have a very immersive experience of encountering a dinosaur, let's look at one that looks very lifelike.
Oh. Look at the children, amazed in front of it.
Oh, we're lucky that we have some space. Usually there's about 500 children crowded around it, and so you kind of have to battle your way through all the children to get close.
So how accurate is the...
Well, this is pretty accurate, and I like that it has pretty smooth movements. So even from a technological point of view, because many robots have these very, clunky movements, but this one has pretty smooth, nice movements. So yeah, do you have a pet?
I used to. Well, not right now. I'll talk to them. Maybe you can help me talk to them.
Yeah, it needs a lot of meat. And this one is not fully grown, so this is supposed to be a T-Rex. So it would be a challenging pet to keep.
So tell me about the T-Rex. The teeth are differentiable or non? Is it the same teeth or is it specialized?
So they're not really differentiated in the sense that they are in your jaws and other mammals. But there's some differentiation. So for example, T-Rex typically has smaller teeth at the front.
Oh yeah.
Which it used to scrape off meat of bones, and larger teeth on the side, which you can see there. So there's some differentiation going on. Most importantly, these teeth are pretty massive.
I could feel the air when he moves, so that's really amazing. Yeah?
And it has teeth that are really designed to crush bone.
Oh yeah.
Other predatory dinosaurs have teeth that are more flat, like knives, but slicing through flesh. This guy has teeth that are really for crunching through everything, muscle, skin, bones, and it has the strongest bite of any dinosaur.
So it's an eating machine, it eats everything, it's not like it's...
I mean, there was a time when people thought, well, maybe T-Rex was so big, it was a scavenger. But we know that it was probably just like any other predator. Lions will scavenge sometimes, most predators will do that. So it was opportunistic, but it would also hunt. We know that for sure. We have bite marks of T-Rex on plant-eating dinosaurs, and those injuries healed. So that means the animal was attacked when it was still alive.
Amazing, amazing. So the $1 million question is, what are the hands for, if you can?
Well, and then the $10 million
He can
question.
shake my hands with his hands. What are they for?
Well, let me ask you the $10 million question then. What are our tails for?
Our tails?
Yeah, you know when you fall on your bottom, there's still some little tail bones?
Yes,
what are those for?
Coccyx. Oh, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
We don't,
right?
we don't, they become vestigial structures. They may still have had some limited function, but you know, this thing was catching its prey with these massive jaws, just didn't really need them to tackle prey. And so for the same reason that we don't have a very impressive tail anymore, unlike T-Rex.
Yes.
You know?
Let's see the tail. How about the... Yeah. So the center of gravity is, it's balanced. The tail is also
we used to think that dinosaurs were kind of dragging their tails on the ground, but we now know that that's wrong. When you look at the footprints, for example, there are no tail drag marks. And yes, there's, as you said, it's balanced.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to balance this massive skull.
Yeah. So something about it reminds me of chicken.
Yeah, I mean the feet for sure.
Yes.
I mean, feet even still. Chickens still have the scaly feet.
Yeah.
Even,
and how the fingers and the claws come out from the skin is kind of reminiscent.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So birds are related to a group that is related to T-Rex, right?
Yes. So basically, people sometimes think of reptiles when they think of modern day reptiles like crocodiles or lizards when they think of dinosaurs, but T-Rex here was a lot more closely related to a chicken than to a crocodile. And as I said, scientifically speaking, birds are dinosaurs, surviving dinosaurs.
Yes.
We'll see some feathered dinosaurs in a moment. Yeah. We don't know if T-Rex itself was feathered. We have some T-Rex skin, and it looks scaly.
Okay.
So at least in some parts, it had scaly skin, and maybe T-Rex was an exception, so to speak, a bit like an elephant is a mammal, but it doesn't have a lot of fur because it's so big. It doesn't really need any extra insulation. Yeah. Maybe a big T-Rex wasn't feathered, but it's very likely that a baby T-Rex would have been very fluffy and soft.
Very interesting. This is great for students and the youth, high school, middle school students, even children, even young children.
Some small predatory dinosaurs up there.
Yeah.
You used to be able to, there used to be like this bridge where you just walk and you see them, but since COVID that's been kind of closed, so I don't know. So here, with dinosaurs, we think of very big things, big animals, but of course they start off small.
Yeah.
In eggs, right?
Yeah.
So dinosaurs like this one would grow into pretty large animals, but they started off very small and they would grow very rapidly. So dinosaurs have growth rates that are comparable to those of mammals and birds today in some cases, sometimes even higher than most warm-blooded animals today. These are dinosaur eggs. Sometimes we even find dinosaur embryos inside the eggs. So we know what they look like. They had big heads, big eyes, very cute, like many babies, typical baby proportions.
I've seen a picture of even a dinosaur baby, like in the position of similar to chicken.
Absolutely. Yeah, you find these amazing eggs sometimes where you have all of this anatomical detail for the little ones. Dinosaur eggshells are fairly common in some places, so you find these little fragments. I collected some in southern France, for example. But there was a big discovery when people described the first dinosaur eggs,
How long ago was it?
Some of them were actually found a very long time ago before, in the 1800s, before people even knew what they were.
Okay.
And they were just thought that they're giant bird eggs, which wasn't too far off, right? But it was a team of American paleontologists in the Gobi Desert that properly described the first dinosaur eggs, and this was led by a guy called Roy Chapman.
Okay.
And he found lots of amazing things. Roy Chapman Andrews, he found many amazing things, including dinosaur nests. So you actually see that they were laying their eggs in the nest, and some of them had nesting colonies that they would probably return to every year. So, yeah.
Very good.
This is a little, well... So see, this is... You can see the images are quite faded, so you can see it's a little older. But this is an interesting thing because they're comparing dinosaurs to living animals, right? They're saying, herding behavior and, display structures and what have you. But it's difficult in paleontology. We have to be careful because, yes, there are some parallels, but we also have to be careful because some of these animals have no modern day equivalents, right? So there might be some superficial similarities, but the proper way to do it is really to start from scratch and just interpret the fossils, because otherwise you might interpret them wrong because you interpret everything in the light of present day animals,
Yeah.
So that's an important thing to keep in mind.
You can so many in evolution, like there's convergent evolution even in behaviors. So you may find some behaviors that are today or in the suggested by the fossils that are reminiscent of behaviors that you have today.
Yeah.
You have to always be Bayesian, always question your
Absolutely. I mean, one good example, because we're talking about babies, is in the old days people always had images of eggs of little pterosaurs, flying reptiles, and you'd see images in books where you see the parents kind of feeding the young and like birds do. But now we know that the pterosaur embryos inside these eggs were pretty much ready to fly. And it's actually more likely that the parents were just laying their eggs, which were leathery, a bit like those of sea turtles. And like sea turtles, they might just lay them and go like, goodbye. And the little ones were very capable of, flapping and catching maybe little insects. And so there's a completely different model. So the little ones would fill ecological niches that would otherwise be filled by small species, if you see what I mean, like in birds you have all these, so it's completely different. And yet because they're flying, we used to think, oh, they're flying, so we have to look at birds to understand them, right? But they're really different. So it's
always question your assumptions. That's science, basically.
Yes. This is a very fast running dinosaur. You can see slender limbs. It would have been a very agile animal. It's known as Gallimimus. That's the one that you see in Jurassic Park, the big herd of dinosaurs running. Yeah.
But not the small one that got inside some of the rooms.
No, not those.
No. These are smaller.
You'll see some of those in a moment. Okay. Here's a fleshed out T-Rex head. And these are these weird and wonderful dinosaurs.
Whoa,
one of the nice things. Man? So this is the skull of a pachycephalosaur. And so these are dinosaurs with a massive dome on their head, very thick. And one idea is that they were using them for ramming, for battling.
So that definitely doesn't mean big brains or anything.
Well, let's just say, they're not very big brains, but most importantly, the brain is very well protected under this massive. But yeah,
this is also part of the.
Yeah, this is just the dome of a pachycephalosaur. So this is, they have all these touch bones and things that people can touch.
It's not just hollow, right? It's full.
Yeah. And you can see, here's another thing that you can touch. These are the casts. Remember I told you the teeth of predatory dinosaurs? So these are the more blade-shaped ones of most predatory dinosaurs. And here's the more rounded, more robust one of T-Rex.
Was it? It was sharp, huh?
Yes, I mean, these would have been very sharp indeed, because they had these small serrations like a steak knife, which, you can't really sense here, but if you have a real dinosaur tooth, I'll bring you one the next time we meet. Then you can actually run your finger along here and you can feel the serrations like a steak knife. These are some armored dinosaurs, and we'll see some other examples of armored dinosaurs in a moment. So these are like living tanks.
Wow.
Claws. These claws look like meat hooks, as you can see. And what you're seeing here is just the bony core of the claw. When the animal was alive, this would have been covered up to this point approximately by a keratinous sheath. basically the nail, if you like. So the real claw would have been even bigger when the animal was alive.
So a lot of violence and killing has been going on.
Well, nature red in tooth and claw, still is today, right?
Yes.
This is a bony plated dinosaur similar to Stegosaurus, but is an Asian relative. Got these big spikes on its tail.
Yeah, and there's stuff on the back.
Yeah. We don't really think that those were used for protection or defense because the sides of the animal are vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
So again, they may have been display structures, you know, like a peacock's tail or something, you know.
Right.
Dinosaurs were pretty showy animals, and you can see that in these guys as well. Big, long crests. This one is called Parasaurolophus.
Is it the head and that's the eye cavity?
Yep.
And that's the...
Yeah, and this is basically, it could pump air through these openings and create, you know, I guess a trumpet-like sound that would travel over a long distance, yeah.
Ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think that these are original bones?
Some of them are cast. So usually it will tell you on the side, it will give a specimen number and it'll say if it's a cast or not. They bought some of these from Alberta, Canada and other parts of North America. So there are some originals, but some are cast. But it usually tells you if it's a cast. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. This is a relative of Triceratops, one of the horned dinosaurs. And they found big herds of these guys that all died at the same time, maybe while they're crossing a river. So sometimes, you know, you just find one dinosaur skeleton, like our Spinosaurus, only one in the world. And sometimes you'll find hundreds or thousands of individuals that all died in the same place at the same time.
I want to double check again the
Yeah,
sound.
sure.
Can you mind
Yeah, all good.
next to you?
You don't have much trust in your machinery.
Oh, because it was failing a couple of times.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
This is kind of cool because you can look at it here. This is where
It's a good
anatomy.
steak for any carnivore humans out there.
Yes, that was not my first thought, but okay, I see you're hungry. I thought you had lunch before we went out here.
That was actually my friend when we visited 2 days ago. That was the comments of my friend. I was it was like looks like a chicken.
Yeah, drumstick.
Yes.
This really emphasizes how important anatomy is in the study of dinosaurs and other extinct animals. Geology is important because we find fossils in rocks, but really the most important thing, in my opinion, is anatomy, evolutionary biology. Because if you want to reconstruct the muscles of an animal and find out how it walked, you know, these are very much things, you know, out of the biosciences, you know. And it's quite difficult. I mean, we've done that for some dinosaurs, and you know, you can get some information from the bones themselves. You can find out where the muscles attached. But then you'll look at some living animals and try to, you know, interpret the anatomy of an extinct animal. It's we put a lot of work into it, but of course there's always a certain degree of interpretation, right?
Right. So what are some of the principles when you say a muscle is hooking into or
well, they're like rough surfaces on bones sometimes where you can see that muscles attached, but also if you look at living animals, you can see where the major muscles attach,
Right.
and you can correlate that, you know, to dinosaur bones. If we look at tail muscles, for example, we might look at alligators, so, you know, dissected alligators to look at tail muscles to understand the tails of our Spinosaurus, for example, right?
So there are also like physics principles like.
Yeah, of course, all the lever and, you know, I mean, the basic physics. And some people actually spend their entire career building biomechanical models of dinosaurs, a little bit like the ones you see on the screens there, right? And you can run them using different parameters and kind of trying to narrow down things like their walking speed. And you can match that, not just to the skeletons, but also to things like this. So if you turn around, you know what these are? Tracks, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And when you find tracks, you can deduce a lot of things. Most of the tracks don't show dinosaurs doing very exciting things because what do we do most of the time?
Walk.
We just walk.
Yeah.
We don't run around.
Yeah.
Same thing for lions. You know, 99% of the tracks that a lion leaves behind are just walking. Only 1% will be, you know, the running after prey. But
you can learn things about the weights and
Yeah, but
how? So
but also if you look at the stride length, you can figure out things like the hip height. So there are formulae we have where you can figure those things out. You can figure out the walking speed. You can figure out that some animals moved in herds.
Yeah.
You can sometimes see a real story. So this is what they're trying to show here, where you see lots of plant-eating dinosaurs, and those are the ones here. And then you'll see in a moment a large meat-eating dinosaur appearing on the scene. And then they start running around. So you can see the meat-eater approaching, and they will scatter. It's difficult sometimes to get the timing right of what happens, where these footprints left at the same time, like here. The predator comes and they all scatter, or where they're left 2 days apart, right? But sometimes when you look at it, it does look like there's something happening. You can see the predator turning, and so this is kind of fossilized behavior. Essentially.
Yeah, it's like a whole story or a whole movie recorded in the footsteps.
This is a relative of T-Rex up there, lighter and a little smaller. These models are kind of fun. This is a predatory dinosaur with a comparatively very large brain. And these guys also had big eyes. They probably did a lot of nocturnal hunting.
Oh.
And you know what they were hunting? Quite a bit, probably.
Mammals.
Your own little ancestors. So.
Small mammals, right?
Yes, small little furry mammals. And what's interesting with this guy is if you look at it from the front, you'll see it's got stereoscopic vision, right? It's got like overlapping fields of vision, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that's tells you something about the ecology of the animal, right? In other dinosaurs, you don't necessarily see that. You can also try to find out how good their sense of vision is overall and their sense of smell from looking at their brain. And you might say, like, their brain? Are you crazy, Nizar? The brain isn't preserved, right? The brain just rots away. But the cavity where the brain used to be is still there. So you can reconstruct the shape of the brain, and the brain is a very conservative structure in vertebrates.
If it works, it remains.
Yeah, so the major parts are still there. I mean, in fact, our brain still has the basic divisions that you'll see in very, very simple, quote-unquote, lower animals.
Yeah. So the vision area is typically in the back.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can look at, and you can look at the olfactory bulbs, for example, for smell. And we know that in T-Rex, they're enormous. The T-Rex had really good sense of smell and really good vision. So remember Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
In the movie? What do they tell the people when the T-Rex comes? They say, don't move.
Don't move, yeah.
Don't move.
Yeah.
Very bad idea. Because he can see you very well.
And smell.
And he can smell you very well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's not a movement. Like snakes, I think, it's mistaken for a snake behavior.
So don't follow the Jurassic Park advice if you ever meet a T-Rex.
Okay.
So this, just as a little side story, but you'll see many of these fossils from the UK come from places like the Isle of Wight and smaller places. And in the old days, they would all come to the big museum in the capital city in London, right? Now, these smaller regions have their own little museums, like the Isle of Wight has its own dinosaur museum. So it's a bit like in the US, all the big discoveries before came to the East Coast to the American Museum in New York and so on. But now those places like Wyoming and Colorado and Utah, they have their own museums. So to a certain extent, that's similar to what we see on a global scale with, say, fossils from Morocco or something, where before they were just taken out, but now they will have their own little museum. So on a certain different scale, you see that within countries as well. Yeah. Where in the old days everything came to London, but now they're more, regional centers of paleontology as well.
So So here they took some of.
They
fossils?
would bring them from the Isle of Wight, and they automatically came to London.
Yeah.
Now, if you find something on the Isle of Wight,
you put
it's probably going to be in the museum there. Yeah.
Museum, yeah.
This is a very famous predatory dinosaur, Allosaurus. This is kind of like the lion of the Jurassic, if you like. So you can see this is what we were just talking about earlier on, where we were talking about muscle systems. So this might look to you like it's a person doing a thumbs up, but this is Iguanodon. This is one of these plant-eating dinosaurs. Sometimes when we're very lucky, we even find dinosaur skin. So in this case, it's scaly skin, right? But but sometimes we also find evidence for feathers, right? So some dinosaurs had feathers, some had scaly skin. There's also a little display on pathologies and injuries, but I don't know if we'll have time to look at every single one of these. But that's another thing you can read from the bones, find out how the animals got injured and how these injuries healed with time. I think it's over there actually.
Yeah. So even
here you can actually see a brain. See, there's the brain cavity we were talking about, and there's a reconstructed brain.
Yes. They fit it in. Oh,
yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you see it fits very neatly.
Very
it's
detailed.
very tightly enclosed.
Yeah, I thought it would be less resolution.
No, the resolution is great. You can find out where the major nerves originate and everything. It's amazing. Here's some. Well, there's the extinction of the dinosaurs, of course, always a big topic.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of relevance to us. We wouldn't be here walking through a museum today if this meteorite had not struck. So this is a kind of almost best case scenario. There's an almost complete skeleton of an Edmontosaurus, big plant-eating dinosaur, but it is missing much of its tail. Tails are obviously very interesting for predators, for scavengers.
Yeah.
A lot of very meaty parts, right? This is an old-fashioned reconstruction of Iguanodon. This kind of shows you the history of paleontology. It's got like this kangaroo pose almost, and it's using the tail like a tripod kind of thing. But we know that that's not accurate. In fact, you literally have to break the tail bones to make it stand like this. So we now know that it was
like T-Rex, more
like the T-Rex, and it could also walk on all fours. It had pretty robust hooves, if you like, even on its forelimbs. So either on 2 legs or 4 legs, but the tail off the ground, not like this giant kangaroo. But that's how science evolves, right?
Yeah.
So I promised you feather dinosaurs. Here are some.
They are.
I think these used to be, they had these robots before and they didn't have feathers, but then had to update them and they had to make these like suits, like a little dress that they put on them. Now they look feathered.
Yeah.
So this is a famous sickle-claw dinosaur, Deinonychus, which was one of the models for the velociraptors in Jurassic Park.
Right.
And there's a possibility maybe that some of these animals were pack hunters, although the evidence is mixed. But it's possible. So they would have been pretty smart and intimidating for sure, with or without feathers. But now we know they had feathers. They would have been, fluffy killers.
Yeah. So they couldn't fly, right?
No, they couldn't fly, which is, when you think of feathers, there's like this quintessential flight feature, right? But initially they didn't evolve for flight. These animals clearly weren't flying. So they used them for insulation, what we were talking about earlier, and display probably, Some of them had spectacular tails, and we see that even today in birds, big displaced feathers, too.
Yeah. And maybe even the ostrich, for example, uses the feathers for balance.
Yeah, that's another one. I mean, if these guys are in attack mode, for example, and trying to balance, they're kicking with these big claws or pinning prey down. They could also maybe help in
aerodynamic power. To.
Yeah, some of them are also saying that you can see that in some birds when they're just they use their feathers when they're running up an incline, for example.
Yes.
So there are different models that we have for the origin of flight itself,
right?
From the trees down and from the ground up, and wing-assisted incline running and all sorts of things. It's a really interesting evolutionary question.
Yeah.
But the basic fact that feathers are much older than birds is now undisputed.
All right. So these were how old are these dinosaurs? 120.
They're about 120 million years old, but this group goes back further, so you'll find very similar dinosaurs that are both younger and older. So for example, in the rocks where we work in Morocco, in theory, you could find animals like this from,
Oh, feathered dinosaurs in Morocco?
You could.
Maybe, yeah.
In terms of the timing,
Yeah, the timing, yeah, right.
Yeah. It might not be, the preservation might not be perfect. I mean, to find the feathers, you need very special conditions, right? They can be preserved in places like in Solnhofen in Bavaria, where Archaeopteryx was found, very famous fossil. Or in China, many feathered dinosaurs were found in fine ash. So they died, they're covered in this very fine ash.
But so flights evolved, was it at least twice in the dinosaurs, right? The big pterosaurs, are they
Well, the
they're not
pterosaurs,
related?
they're related to dinosaurs, but they're not dinosaurs themselves.
Oh, okay.
So
were they feathered?
They were the first. That's a very good question. It's a controversial question.
Yeah.
Some people say they were,
Okay.
and others say they were not. It's difficult to interpret the fossils we have right now, and it's it's one of those, pretty intense scientific disputes right now. But
So the ones that say pterosaurs were feathered, are they suggesting that feathers are
go even further back? It goes like to the common ancestor of dinosaurs and pterosaurs and beyond, and even before them.
Okay.
But it's a tricky one, yes.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Great.
Because sometimes there are other decaying structures that might look like feathers, feather-like integument, but they're not feathers, right? So it's a tricky one. This is a cool one of the earliest dinosaurs, Silophysis. Hundreds of skeletons of this dinosaur were found in America, in Arizona, in a place called Ghost Ranch. And this is one of the most famous ones. So this is a cast of one of the most famous ones. You can see everything beautifully.
Yeah.
And see, it's got like little bones in here.
Oh,
its last meal.
The meal.
People used to think that maybe those were baby Silophysis, like a cannibal. We have some evidence for cannibalism in other dinosaurs, but these guys were probably just feeding on other vertebrates, not their own little young. But yeah. So, but that's how dinosaurs started. Not very big, pretty agile, and pretty ferocious looking, narrow snout.
Yeah, the teeth are preserved too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. When you look at fossils like this, you also appreciate fossils are important for science.
Yeah.
But they're also, aesthetically speaking,
Yeah.
they're amazingly beautiful. I mean, if you look at all these intricate details, it's like, I would like to have one of those, like in my living room.
Oh, yeah.
It looks better than,
Yeah.
any painting.
Even if you're not a trained paleontologist,
everybody can appreciate the beauty.
Aristotle would be here, like in awe in front of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
The amount of things you can learn.
Yeah,
this
Michelangelo would be like.
Also,
There's a very famous dinosaur Triceratops with the 3 horns. We're currently working on a Triceratops, and it's the biggest Triceratops in the world. They have this really amazing skull. Again, looks like some extraterrestrial, something like out of Star Wars or something, right? And they've got this unique bone that you see at the front, the rostral bone.
Yeah.
Only these dinosaurs have this bone.
Is it?
It's like a bit like a parrot beak, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, the teeth are way.
Yeah, the teeth are way back there, but they're really good for processing tough plants. And this one was one of the last dinosaurs, by the way. So this, animals like this one would have, witnessed the very last moments of the age of dinosaurs. I mentioned that we'll see other armored dinosaurs. So this is slightly outdated model, but you can see the surface of the armor, on the back of this animal. And these are incredible creatures. Some of these armored dinosaurs really were like tanks with big armor plates, and in some of them even the eyelids were armored.
Oh, wow.
And why would that be? Why would they have all of this incredible armor and weaponry? They have this massive tail club that they could use to smash the legs of a dinosaur, even a T-Rex, right? You could smash the legs of a predator. Why would they evolve all of these crazy things? Because of huge evolutionary pressures from predators. So you can imagine how ferocious the predators must have been if these things literally turned into tanks,
Yes.
with armored eyelids even.
So could this one survive a T-Rex? attack?
Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
some plant eaters, we often think of plant-eating dinosaurs as a little placid and almost defenseless in some cases. But plant eaters can be pretty dangerous. If you look at living animals, if you look at Cape buffaloes in Africa or rhinos or elephants, often these are a lot more dangerous than the lions or so, right? And an angry triceratops would probably be a very, very scary thing for even the biggest T-Rex, you know? So, I think it, even for the predators, it was a, difficult life. And we see it in their skeletons. They have lots of injuries, lots of pathologies.
So this is a small model and this is the real scale?
Yes.
And you can see the...
Yeah, and you can see some of the ribs underneath there.
Right, the ribs.
It's like kind of, if you removed the armor, that's what you would see.
Beautiful.
This is a really cool specimen. This is, in some ways, if you like, the very first T-Rex.
Oh.
Because this was, you can see this was discovered in Wyoming, and it was named Dinosaurus imperiosus, right? Which is a pretty cool name. And then later, a more complete skeleton was found, and this was then referred to Tyrannosaurus rex, right? So we know that Dinosaurus is actually Tyrannosaurus rex. But because this was the first one found, this is kind of like a very special find. It's kind of like the first T-Rex, even if it was known as under a different name.
Look at again,
you can see these openings for blood vessels and nerves and these very robust teeth. And you just look at the size. I mean, you can just imagine the massive muscles that were, moving these jaws. It's really awe-inspiring. This is a long-necked dinosaur, Camarasaurus, from the Jurassic. This looks pretty impressive, and yet by dinosaur standards, this was a fairly small sauropod dinosaur. These things could grow much, much, much larger, but they wouldn't fit in here. So
I'm putting a human to scale, so you can see how big this is. This is huge.
All good. This is a very special dinosaur because it has a connection both to Britain and to my dinosaurs from Morocco.
Oh.
This is a dinosaur called Baryonyx.
Okay.
And Baryonyx is pretty unusual. So if you look at the skull, what do you notice compared to the other predators you've seen so far?
Very elongated.
Very elongated. And almost like crocodile-like jaws.
Oh yeah.
And so this is actually a member of a group we call the Spinosaurs. And so the Spinosaurus we excavated in the Sahara is, a bigger, larger cousin of this British dinosaur. And both of them were fish eaters, mostly. But this skeleton was really important in interpreting these finds from the Sahara before we found our skeleton. Because we just had bits and pieces from Morocco and Egypt and so on. And so this was more complete. And so this was used to interpret these discoveries.
So this is a marine...
well, it's at least partially aquatic. It would have spent quite a bit of time in the water. We studied the bones of Baryonyx for a recent paper that we published this year. And we were able to show that they were very dense and heavy, which is something we see in animals like manatees, for example. We might look at a manatee skeleton in a moment. They have really dense bones, and that's important in buoyancy control in the water. So it helps them keep underwater when they're hunting for fish. And narrow jaws are great if you want to catch fish, because you can close your jaws very rapidly underwater. There's little water resistance. I mean, you can test that yourself in the water. If you have something thin, you can move it through the water very easily. If you have something like, very broad, it's like,
a T-Rex would have been very bad at biting underwater.
Yes, exactly. So, pretty amazing dinosaur. And Baryonyx is also a cool name. It means heavy claw, because it's got these really big thumb claws.
Are these your ancestors?
Well, they're a number of important paleontologists, mostly from the early days. Again, this hasn't been updated much, but this is Richard Owen, who was apparently a rather unpleasant person, but a brilliant anatomist and scientist. And he introduced the name Dinosauria. So he put all of these, there are only a few dinosaurs were known at the time in Victorian England. And he said, well, all of these animals actually belong to a group of animals that I shall now name Dinosauria. Yeah.
Awesome.
These are two American paleontologists. They were responsible for what we call the Bone Wars. They started off, respecting each other, but eventually they hated each other and tried to outdo and outperform each other. So they were in a race to find more and more dinosaurs.
Okay. Which is good. It's good for us.
It's good, but apparently, yes, at the end of the day, they found many, many, many new dinosaurs from North America. But apparently they didn't even shy away from hiring, bandits and outlaws to destroy dig sites of their opponents. So, yeah, there was certainly some, dodgy stuff going on. How much of it is true is another question, but that was the Bone Wars.
Right, 19th century too?
Yeah, it was Marsh, who had a lot of money even later, and Cope, who was a little shorter on money, which is why he eventually kind of lost the Bone War to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know if you can really lose
he's here,
it,
so he didn't lose because
he
he's
didn't.
here.
Yes,
actually.
exactly. This is Roy Chapman Andrews that I mentioned earlier on with the dinosaur eggs.
Right?
Remember?
Yeah.
And early pioneer of Chinese paleontology. Of course, now there are lots and lots of Chinese paleontologists doing good work. In particular, one chap called Xu Xing, and they're finding all these feathered dinosaurs, for example, and pretty spectacular stuff.
And we have here also a pioneering Moroccan or
Yeah, well, that's
paleontologist. Maybe your picture will be there.
Yeah, but when they do the next update.
Yes.
And this is a little sleeping dinosaur, just to remind people that dinosaurs, were real animals and not, mythological monsters or, Hollywood creatures. They were real living animals. This is a dinosaur called Psittacosaurus. Psittaco refers to, parrot-like beak here.
Yeah.
And this is a very abundant dinosaur. So there's some parts of the world, if you go to China, you can find many, many skeletons of this animal.
Awesome.
So dinosaur skeletons are, some of them are super abundant and others are very rare, like a Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
So, and I've got the Mona Lisa. All right. So we could. There's the Hall of Mammals. Have you been in there?
No, actually.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. You have seen Dippy, I think, right?
Yeah, I've seen it yesterday.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to go to Dippy, but we can do the mammals first.
Yeah. Especially,
Okay.
I guess they will have the megafauna.
Well, let me
and
see.
all that.
Mammals, we can actually go through here and
Okay.
turn in one of the. Yeah.
So where is your dinosaur now, the fossil? Where is it located, the actual bones?
The actual bones are in Morocco,
Oh, good.
Darbida,
Good to hear. Are they planning
Kulia,
to... Yeah.
Hassantani,
Yeah.
Feinstock.
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
It should have a home of its own, like this.
It needs we want to have a on-campus museum, ideally. Something to really, put it on the map, so to speak, so that.
Yeah.
I got a request from Japan. They would like to have some of the original fossils on display for a big exhibit they're putting together.
Yeah. So they borrow it and then.
Well, I'm still thinking about it. It's nerve-wracking because those are very, very
Precious.
special fossils,
Yeah,
and so it's always a little.
Yeah. Well, then the question is whether the original or the replica. Are there scientific accurate replica?
Yeah. We have them. The thing is, most people wouldn't know the difference, but still, when people go to a museum, as you
If
saw,
it's written,
they always ask,
the first
"Is this
question."
real?" They wouldn't even know the difference, and yet they will always. So we'll go. Yeah, I'm just trying to find the best entrance because there's one entrance where I can. It's fine.
Okay.
Because we can go the other way, but this is also cool.
Okay. What?
Big whale.
Yeah. It is.
It's like what? It's just a normal room.
Oh yeah. I've just seen the actual blue. I thought it was the wall actually.
No, it's an actual.
I've just realized why you're looking at me like that. It's an actual freaking.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. This is... So this is modern? Is it modern?
Yeah. This is a blue whale. And this is not even the biggest they get, you know, but it's very impressive.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And one thing we can do is we'll go up here. No, go ahead. See, this is a wall.
Yeah.
This is 3D. This is a wall. We have to go whale watching, you know?
Yeah,
we should go whale watching. But you'll have to get a little better at spotting the whales when they're right in front of you. See the head coming out. What? It's just a wave. This is cool. I used to have a small piece of this, like this one, in my anatomy lab in Michigan, and I would show it to the students and say, tell me what this is. Compared to anatomy class, you know? And so they would go like, oh, what is it? It's like hair. It's like, what is it? And is it a horn? Is it, you know? Some of them got it. But
one of those filtering
yeah, exactly.
devices,
So it's what we call baleen. So that's what they would use to filter out
so
the food out of the
whale
water.
opens her mouth and then stuff gets in, and this is used to filter nutrients.
And then they press out the water again, and the food stuff stays stuck in this baleen, and then they can swallow it with the big tongue.
Yeah.
They're pretty extraordinary, really.
That's the tongue. Well, this is a dolphin. But
yeah. This is an orca whale. You can see they can roll up the tongue. Can you do that? Some people can do that.
I can.
You know, it's one of those things. Yeah. And of course, as you know, when we look at the evolutionary history of whales, when you go back in time, at some point you get to creatures that really don't look much like whales at all. Long-legged creatures, but over time their legs get shorter and shorter and shorter.
So this is a whale ancestor?
Yes, this is kind of like an idealized version. We now know a little bit more about these early whale ancestors, but yeah, it's one of those amazing stories that we only really understand because of paleontology.
Yeah, it was furry. It was a furry mammal.
Yeah.
And then the whiskers, you know, even in modern whales and dolphins, there are traces of whiskers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in our anatomy, there's so many traces of all kinds of things, you know, and all kinds of dormant genes that are just switched off, you know. It's, you know, obviously that only makes sense if you understand that we have this incredible, very, very long history weaved into our bodies, written into our bodies. So one thing I can show you is, for example, they removed some of this. But these early whales here, there's one here. This is a famous one called Basilosaurus. There's a place in Egypt.
Wadi Haytan.
Wadi Haytan, which is the Valley of the Whales. Yeah. But we now have whales like these in Morocco as well.
Oh.
So there are some of my colleagues in Casablanca are working on these with colleagues in Michigan. And so this is now also a place where you can find some of these early whales.
This has been published? Or
yeah, some of them have been published. Again, unfortunately, I know that some skeletons of whales were found and were, sold, many of them, you know. Okay. So the things that have been published are not as complete. It's mostly, jaw pieces with some teeth and so on. Right. So they're there, but again, it's one of those things where you really have to basically go there, excavate it immediately so it's not pillaged, right? Yeah. Which is challenging.
Wadi Haytan in Egypt, the advantage is that it's very remote, right?
Or, the Moroccan sites are also very remote, but that doesn't keep the, Yeah. I mean, many of our dinosaur sites are very, very remote, and yet they will still, people go so far out in the desert, you'd be amazed. Some of them go, they pack their stuff, they go for weeks to hunt for meteorites, for example, or fossils or whatever. And, I even saw, I remember some of the people who were with us in the desert, after our field work, they said they were going to hunt for truffles, mushrooms. Apparently you can find them in some parts of the desert at some point, which is kind of crazy, right? Wow. Yeah, they go hunting for truffle. I mean, they'll hunt for anything, so no matter how remote it is.
Right.
So this skeleton over there, this is a sperm whale, right? Or in French, un cachalot.
Yeah, the one with the...
Yeah, with the big teeth, like the big skeleton there. Not the one with the long, that one. It's only got teeth on its lower jaw.
Oh,
which is interesting. Sometimes they have just kind of like something that looks like rudimentary teeth on the upper jaw, just a couple, but really they only have the real teeth on the lower jaw. And these, of course, are famous because of the novel Moby Dick, right? It was a white sperm whale, and also because they hunt giant squid in very deep water. So these are the ones that do these titanic battles with giant squid. And for a long time, there is a giant squid here in the Natural History Museum in the collections. One that they put in a big tank. I think it's called Archie, I think.
It's not on display.
It's not on display. But there's certain, I mean, next time you come here, if you want, I can take you there.
Yes, please do.
But at the moment, they're moving things in the collections. I was actually asking if we could maybe, but it's they're busy moving things to a new building. So, but next time. But for a long time, we didn't really know what these giant squid looked like. But we would sometimes find traces of their suckers on the skin of sperm whales, And also, they've got these beaks, a bit like parrot beaks, right? And we would find those in the stomach of sperm whales. So you find those things because they don't really get digested very well, as you can imagine. They're very, very hard. And so we had these indirect pieces of evidence. And then, of course, a few years ago, Japanese researchers produced the first footage of this giant squid, and they're a lot more active than we thought, and pretty scary looking creatures. But
how big can they get?
That's a good question. I mean, some of them are 15 meters long, and even longer in some cases, maybe 18 meters. There are a couple of different ones. There's a giant form, Archaeopteryx. There's also colossal squid, which is more massive, but maybe not quite as long. So there's different ways to, say which one is the biggest, so to speak,
Right.
But they're really, really large, and yet none of them really stand a chance against the sperm whale. They eat them in pretty good numbers, and, no matter how much of a fight they put up, the sperm whale is obviously much, much heavier and stronger.
So this is a modern sperm whale?
Yes,
so modern sperm whales has this peculiar teeth only on the lower jaw?
Yeah. Okay. There's some extinct relatives.
I have to call David Attenborough about it. I haven't seen it. It must be in one of his documentaries, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And then, so this is kind of like a family album. We'll see a display. I think there's a display somewhere on the other side of the narwhal, which we'll see in a moment, which has like this really cool tusk.
Yeah.
You'll actually see one with a double tusk, which is very rare. Whales are, of course, also really cool because they have this amazing intelligence, right? Which is a different kind of intelligence to ours. But,
But it's mammalian intelligence.
Yes.
With some specific...
but they live in a completely different world, right?
Exactly.
With, echolocation and what have you.
Yeah.
And so there you go, there's the narwhals, and there's the double tusk.
Look at that. Yeah.
And this, of course, these pictures from many books, the
comparative
pentadactyl limbs, and of course the way this is also something that, we always tell them, like mammals move,
Yes.
They don't go side to side like a fish, they do the...
Yeah, so the classic way to distinguish between like a shark and a whale is whether this is vertical or...
Yeah, I mean, there are so many other things, of course, including the fact that these guys, of course, have their blowhole to go to the surface. They don't have gills, and, as mammals, of course, they have a completely different physiology. They have this very thick blubber for insulation. The mechanisms they have to stay underwater are very different. It's all... Oh, yeah, and I told you we're going to look at some... sea cows and manatees and so on. So here you go. So these are these huge extinct sea cows, and this is a group that only has a fraction of its original diversity still alive today. But when you look at these animals, and there's something you see in all of them, you can see how massive the ribs are.
Yeah.
And so this is what these animals have. They have massive ribs and very dense bone. So like our Spinosaurus, they have these features that help them stay underwater. So here's your manatee, which you can see in Florida, for example, and a dugong.
Did they come back to the sea in a different evolutionary path from dolphins, or is it the same?
Yeah, slightly. There will be different. Yes, and they may have been the inspiration for I don't know. I think maybe the sailors were very short-sighted. Didn't have glasses. When you look at whale skeletons,
that's the wall, the blue wall.
Yeah, that's the blue whale. Yeah.
No, the blue wall.
The blue. Oh, yes, of course. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
When you look at the skeletons, that's when you also realize just how difficult it is to reconstruct animals if you only have the bones. Sometimes, you go like, well, so when you have a dinosaur, you just go like, who knows what other extra bits you might be missing,
Right.
But with some animals, it's easier. Like if you look at a crocodile or an alligator, the skin, like the shape of the head is very close to what you see in the bones, right? But in some other animals, you just go like, wow, they've gone really, gone crazy with all their extra integument and... All right, now we can take these stairs down again.
Okay.
So you missed the blue whale when you came here the other day?
The museum is so big, you can't...
So what did you see?
We did human evolution.
Okay.
And some of the geology.
Okay.
We stood on the volcano
you did
platform where you can see
the Japanese earthquake.
Earthquakes. But I did come here several years ago, and I remember a huge hall with the smaller. It's much more open than this, with a lot of fossils, insects, butterflies. Which I couldn't find 2 days ago when I came back. It's so big that very easy to not find what you're looking for,
Yeah. But when you walk through a museum like this one, that's when I always think like, you could have an amazing big museum in Morocco built in the traditional Moroccan architecture and everything, and it could be amazing. You could have things. It wouldn't be that expensive in the grand scheme of things. If you're going to build a TGV or a Morocco Mall or something, you can. You know what I mean? Like it's better value for money. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
Here's different elephants. So modern ones and extinct ones.
Yeah. Do they have the megafauna somewhere? The big mammals, extinct mammals.
Yeah,
massive
I mean
mammals.
some of them. Yeah. Well, this is kind of like about size but there's different giant extinct elephants. You've got mastodons and mammoths and some of the earlier ones. Like these I really like these guys. Deinotherium. There's a place in Germany where they found several of these, and they're pretty amazing animals.
Are they modern or extinct?
No, they're extinct.
Extinct. Yeah.
So these guys are extinct.
Yeah.
I remember I was here with some people from National Geographic, and they all wanted to get their selfie with this guy. He's got like the best expression. But see, some of these early forms, this one is from Egypt, right? Some of these early forms are actually known from Morocco. So one of the earliest ancestors of this group, Phosphatherium, is actually, let's see if I can, because I don't think I have it here. Or rather, Phosphatotherium.
Yeah.
Here. So you can see this is the Phosphatherium. See it here.
Wow.
And this is known from Morocco. You can see here a basal proboscidean, and 56 million years ago in North Africa. So this is a really cool, cool early member of this group.
Yeah. So what you're saying, it's relatively easy to build a museum.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it's easy if you want to do a good one and build it well.
Yeah.
But I think it's an investment that is very hard to, put a price tag on, because it's amazing. Like, this is one of the most visited museums in London.
Yes.
It's always like, either in the top 5, sometimes in the top 3.
Yeah.
It's like, but also it's a real jewel in, you just look at the people. Most of the time, this is just completely overcrowded, I have to say.
Yeah.
But it's because people love this museum. If you have places like this where people can connect with the natural world, where they can learn about their own origins, where they can get this sense of awe and wonder, it's priceless. And of course now it's also the kind of place where people learn about the dangers of biodiversity loss and global changes on our planet and all sorts of things. And there are great places of research. I mean, the research that is done here in this museum is amazing. That's the thing. A museum is not just a place that is stagnant and, just for people to look at things. It's an active place where there's research and collections and visitors from all around the world coming. And it's also, at the end of the day, also a place where you can highlight and protect your ancient heritage, I mean, it's very hard to complain and protest if people are taking your heritage abroad, if you don't offer, anything.
A base.
If you don't have something that's really appropriate for, to really highlight and
the importance of having a place, it's very important. I do work on media, on the internet, YouTube and all that, but there's nothing like going to an actual place. A group of friends meeting, setting a meeting point in the museum, coming and discovering stuff together. There's nothing that can replace that.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, you can look at pictures online or something, but it's not the same as walking into hall and seeing a blue whale. After thinking it's a wall. But then eventually you go like, wow, this is,
and then you go to the wall.
or seeing these towering dinosaurs, I mean, it's these are really, and for kids, these are sometimes life-changing moments,
Oh yeah.
Many kids, like many people, they don't remember many things from their childhood, but they will remember things like going to the Natural History Museum.
Absolutely. Many people, they don't actually appreciate this. I mean, we talk about it because, and maybe we have an understanding of it, but many people, they don't really understand the value of the wow moments. The wow moments can actually transform a person forever. It's maybe a kid here, there are kids here that are right now having wow moments that will actually shape their entire future and maybe the future of mankind, because those people will probably make new discoveries and change the course of mankind. So these are very, very, very important things. I hope more and more people appreciate the importance of the inspiration factor, of the wow factor. It cannot be replaced by a book and a teacher in a classroom, although that's very important. But a book and a teacher in the classroom,
a different thing. It's a different, And ultimately, this is also, I mean, these are incredibly precious things. Like this is the greatest story out there, and it's not a mythology or made up stories. It's the story of us, of our planet, of everything. And if that's not important, then what is? Right?
Yeah. So this is the story of story that is 4 billion years old and has been unraveling on this planet, and we are one aspect of it. But for us to be here, it has to, the planet has to go through this magnificent story for us to be here. So it's also a way for humans to go outside, to look at the big picture, to look at.
And I think the big picture is very important. It's very important. It teaches us so many things, including a healthy dose of humility, which I think we, more than any other species, ever need.
So, you think you are the center of the world? Look at this.
I know.
What animal lives? Wow.
So I'm also quite interested in the scenography and museology, because of course this is something that I also work on. When I was working on this exhibit in the dinosaur exhibit now, you always think about how can you best communicate things, how do you engage the public.
Yeah.
And this is of course also something that's evolving.
Yes.
You know, so panels that worked well in the 1980s might not work today anymore. So you need to, you know, now of course museums work a lot with the touch screens and,
Yes.
you know, virtual reality. And,
Interactive.
yeah. But no matter what you use to supplement things, the main thing is still the specimens themselves. You know, those are,
Yes.
you know, that should always be the center.
Yes.
Guys, can I run first and then I'll come out and watch the girls? Is that okay?
So I guess when you're designing something like that, as you say, you would have a centerpiece where someone who's in a hurry and they only have 5 minutes, they may still come and spend the 5 minutes and see the wow, you know, specimen or the fossil.
Yeah.
And then if someone wants to spend the whole afternoon, they would still get much more from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, reptiles. Maybe I can show you something here. Let's see. There's a with sharks, it's interesting because when you look at fossil sharks,
Yeah.
most of the time, all you find are the teeth.
Yeah.
You know, because of the cartilaginous skeletons. But every now and then you're lucky and you find more. But it's crazy. Like if you go to the phosphate mines in Morocco, for example, you find thousands and hundreds of thousands and probably millions of isolated teeth under sediments. And you can, you know, sort them. You know, sometimes you have students like figuring out how many species there are and what have you. But it's crazy just the sheer abundance of some kinds of fossils, you know, because you have, you know, so many generations preserved, you know.
Last time I was asking you, I remember about the number of guessing the number of fossils that have ever been found. It's very hard to estimate.
I think it's impossible. Also because there's not a record that has been kept of everything, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if some, you know, ancient cultures, also people also collecting fossils and, you know, it's just not necessarily, you know, those things might be lost and nobody kept the. These are marine invertebrates, but it's just one room. I was thinking we could maybe. Let's see. So you said you were in the Earth galleries, right? You were whether. So I know where we can go. Were you upstairs?
Yeah.
No, did you go upstairs last time?
Yeah. But I didn't know very quickly. Very quickly.
Okay. Did you go to the Hall of Treasures?
No.
Okay.
So we have like 12 minutes.
Okay. Well, see how fast we can do the stairs. We're still young, right?
Yeah. So I went also to the British Museum. Well, there's a whole discussion about the British Museum, but let's put that on the side.
Yes.
But there was a section on the Enlightenment period.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you have seen that room. It was amazing for me too.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that period where, you know, in Europe, there was a huge effort of cataloging, you know, and gathering. Well, we're speaking about it. We are one of the
man himself.
the man himself. So this is a very famous statue of Darwin. Every time I come, I have to come and see the man himself.
Place of pride. Yeah. It's one of those things where, you know, as you were saying, it's like, you know, one of those kids going to a museum might change the world. And when you look at the ideas that change the world, this is probably one of the most fundamental ones, right? I mean, because it answers some of these really deep fundamental questions. And it's hard for us to imagine it now because I think most people that have a basic understanding of science now know that, yes, you know, this is... I have a basic idea of how evolution works, but there was a time when people just, of course, assumed that everything was just created as it is, immutable and unchangeable.
And magic, it looks unexplainable naturally.
And then there were some ideas, I mean, ideas of changes through time are actually predate Darwin, but there was no real mechanism, right? So people said, like, you know, there must be some way of turning one animal into another, and, you know, interesting ideas. But it's really only with Darwin that this became something that, you know, an explanation that is intellectually fulfilling, and of course,
and testable also.
And well, testable, and also, of course, now there's so much more. I mean, Darwin would be amazed if he learned about, you know, the amazing discoveries we have made in genetics, the amazing fossils we have found that flesh out our own story, right? When you were in the Human Evolution exhibit, right? You probably saw some of those things. The incredible transition we now have from dinosaurs to birds. I mean, there's so many things. But it all started with the...
He had the genius of imagining of the idea and coming up with the idea, which is not...
And it's so interesting because he was such a gentle person that was very reluctant to get involved into anything controversial. So what do you do if you have this brilliant idea, but you don't want to tread on anyone's toes, and you're sitting... And also he was like, you know, when you have a piece of work and you go like, oh, I don't know if it's completely ready, and I still have to tweak it here. It took him such a long time to publish it. He wouldn't be able to be a professor today. You know, they would tell him like, you're not publishing. You're not getting your promotion. But also. That's also a good part of the story because he was conservative, you know, reluctant to publish. He also spent a lot of time trying to attack his own idea and find any possible, you know, criticisms and include it in the book before it. Actually, The Origins of Species is the introduction to the book, right? He wanted to write a book and he wrote an introduction, and that's the... Well, he was also kicked into action because Wallace, of course, had his own independently acquired ideas, and so, you know. But it's a beautiful story of science.
Absolutely, and it's actually one of when I came here to London, one of the thoughts I had was that I'm in the country that produced Newton and Darwin. It's amazing. You can actually what I was talking about earlier was about, you know, the Enlightenment period and the story of that period or a couple of centuries where many people were obsessed with nature. You know, they were gathering so many specimens and discussing books like with thousands of pages where they describe specimen after specimen or species after species where it came from. And that meticulous, you know, effort and fascination, it was very valuable for people like Darwin to come up with theories like this.
Absolutely, and it's still valuable today. You know, these are some of the treasures of the Natural History Museum. These are glass models. They're called the Blaschka glass models, and they're made in Germany, and they're all made of glass. And basically, these the Blaschka models were made with so much attention to detail. They're very, very sought after. I saw an exhibition with Blaschka models in Harvard, at Harvard University, and it's just amazing. You look at some of the things. I mean, there were many, many more in that exhibit, and you look at that, and you go like, it's impossible to believe that someone made that out of glass, because it looks so fluid and it looks like the real animal and was just frozen in time. It's all made of glass.
And it's fragile in the fragility of glass.
Those are very rare treasures in any museum. Another one I want to show you that's very special is actually on the other side.
Okay.
Oh, there's a Morocco connection. Barbary lions, of course.
Yes,
you know,
Lion de Barbarie.
Yeah, exactly.
Les Lions de l'Atlas. They are on the emblem of Morocco. You know.
Exactly, and they are, of course, effectively more or less extinct. So you can kind of try to piece together their you know, these animals with whatever is left genetically speaking, you know, but it's but those are the kind of lions you would see in Rome, for example. You know, that the dodos, of course, cautionary tale. This here is probably the biggest treasure of the Natural History Museum.
Wow.
This is the London Archaeopteryx. This is the type specimen, and you can see the long dinosaurian tail, but it's also got feathers. You can see more feathers over there. The Berlin Archaeopteryx is the really beautiful one that you see in you know all the textbooks and so on. And we'll look at that one some other time. We'll have to meet in the Berlin Museum, which is, you know, the best dinosaur hall in the world. Yeah. But this is from Bavaria in southern Germany, and only very few Archaeopteryx have been found. So there's the Berlin one. There are some in Bavaria in museums, but this one in London here is a very special one, and not as pretty as some of the other ones, but historically very important. And so this.
So is this the one that was found during the lifetime of Darwin, and it was one of the pieces that that actually is
I think Darwin only got a little glimpse of all the amazing things paleontology would eventually bring, you know. But
if Darwin was here in this museum, I think he would have like an emotional shock or something. We would have to take him to the hospital.
Yes,
because this is too much.
No, absolutely, it would be like a dream come true. And this is Richard Owen again, coined the word dinosauria.
Nathan, this one's all about space. Nathan. Nathan.
Got it. So we must have, we have like 3 minutes left, so
okay.
I guess we must have done, what?
We've done
5%?
Yeah, there's a lot to see here. And of course, this is the kind of place you come back to over and over again.
Yeah.
As I said, we should definitely at some point do the Berlin Museum. The Oxford Museum I mentioned is really, really nice. And we should certainly also do another trip to the Natural History Museum here.
Yes, absolutely.
But they're amazing, fun places. They're just like, and there's nothing really like taking someone through the exhibits. If I told you about things just on over Zoom or something, it's not the same, right? So we can maybe go to something that symbolizes time pretty nicely. I don't know if you saw that when you were here last time, but
I did Instagram stories on it. You know, the long timeline. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. They put like the whole geological time.
Oh no, I'm talking about
there's
this
an
one.
a small exhibit with that, but this one is is compact, so
trees.
It's even better. Oh yes.
This is a giant tree section. You can look at that timeline.
So are you telling me that there are individual years that you can, if you zoom enough?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, wow. This, So, when was this tree cut off? And 1891? And then they are mapping the years in the sections of the, the rings of the tree, and telling you events that happened when each of the rings was being formed. So from Charles Darwin in 1800, you're going back in time as you go towards the center of the tree section. And the Black Death in 1300, Ibn al-Haytham in the year 1000, all the way to 557. Where was this tree?
It was probably in California, right? Like
Sequoia.
Sequoia, right? And this is so we can't wrap our head around this amount of time, and yet this is only a tiny little piece of a much bigger story.
Yeah.
So it's a nice, it's literally like a little second in the big.
But if you zoom enough, actually in the central part of the tree, you can actually see the rings. Every ring corresponds to a year. So,
Yeah. And it is indeed from California.
Yeah.
Because that's where you find these giant sequoias, right? These
Right.
like,
Yeah. So the story of these museums and similar museums is to tell us, mankind, to give us a glimpse on this massive and very deep time, which is 4 billion and some million years for the history of Earth. And all the stuff that you discover about this deep time through things like the fossils that we have seen in the museum here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the sharing the greatest story out there, and the natural world is just so filled with beauty and wonder and drama.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, and most importantly, it's real.
Yes.
So unlike a real cathedral, here you have stories that are real and connect us to the natural world, and it's not dragons and myths, it's real life dragons, dinosaurs, and amazing evolutionary transitions. It's whenever you go to a city, I think you should always check out their natural history museum. Those are always, you'll never be disappointed because they always have a great story to tell. With an art museum, you never really know, you'll have to go and see, but you can't really go wrong with history of life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so thank you so much, Nizar, and we will definitely try to do a part 2 and other parts in other museums or maybe back here in the future. So thank you so much.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, all right.
All right.
See you. Bye. There you go. Okay.
Yes, all that. See, your poor machine that you were accusing of all these things was faithfully doing its job.